Dear students, I am present with the remaining part of the lesson Lost Spring. Come to the text. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. There is a locality Simapuri, which is a few miles away from Delhi. Anish Jung came there and he saw that a large number of people used to live in Simapuri, and all these people were from Bangladesh. Those who live here are squatters who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. In 1971, after the division of Pakistan into two parts, many people from Bangladesh came to be settled in India. And those who came to be settled in Simapuri nearby Delhi, these were settlers from Bangladesh. Sahib's family is among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. It still is, but it's no longer empty. Simapuri was a wilderness those days. It means it was a deserted place. Human beings didn't live there. Sahib's family is among those people who came from Bangladesh to Simapuri nearby Delhi. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage or running water, lived 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voter lists and enable them to buy grains. Sahib's family was one of them, and all the families in Simapuri still live in the houses made of mud. Their roofs are made of tin or tarpaulin, it is all plastic. There is no sewage system, there is no drainage system, nothing is there. Around 10,000 rag pickers live there. They have lived there for 30 years, but they haven't been able to gather any special kind of identity. They have only ration cards, and on the basis of those ration cards, they also get a chance to vote for the local government or central government. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that give us no grain, say a group of women in tattered saris. Anish Jung further tells us here, food is more important for survival of life than identity. If you have lots of identity card and you don't have food for 2 times, you won't be able to survive in your life. There was a group of women. Anish Jung wanted to know from them why had they left their green fields of Bangladesh and come to live in that deserted place like Simapuri. That group of women gave her the response, gave her the reply that they were suffering from starvation in Bangladesh. At the end of the day, they were not getting able to fill their stomach with food. And if a person cannot get even 2 times satisfactory meal, it is useless for him to live at such a place where food is also scarce or hard to gain. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. Condition with the people living in Simapuri was quite peculiar. It was a surprising condition. Wherever they found food for them, they used to set their nomadic homes. They used to set their tent, and under the tent, the entire family lived. In this way, survival was continued on roadside, it was continued in the open fields, it was continued in the deserted places like Simapuri. Many children used to grow up in the tents only. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. Anish Jung also tells us here, those living in Simapuri had no other option than collecting garbage. All of them used to collect garbage, they sold that. In this way, they earned their daily bread. It is their daily bread, a roof over their heads, even if it is a leaking roof. But for a child, it is even more. You see, all the poor people who had come from Bangladesh, lived in Simapuri, they had a big problem. And the problem was that even the roof which was over their head, it was a leaking roof. There was leakage. But for a child, it's even more. But for a child like Sahib, but for a child like friends of Sahib, it is also a valuable thing. It is also an important thing. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lighting up. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. Now you see, once Sahib Alam told Anis Jung that he used to gain 1 rupee. Sometimes he used to gain 10 rupee note out of garbage only. Anis Jung gives us a logic. If you by chance get a silver coin in a heap of garbage, your search for more silver coins continues, because you have a hope of collecting more and more silver coins in the same manner. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. For the elders, it is a means of survival. According to Anis Jung, children don't understand what they are doing. Why? Because for them it's a kind of fun to collect garbage and gain money out of it. But for their parents, it was a permanent medium of survival. They had no any other option to do there in the locality like Simapuri. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. One day Anis Jung saw that Sahib Alam was standing outside the gate of a boundary wall. Inside the boundary wall of the neighborhood club, he was watching two young men wearing white dress and playing tennis. Sahib also had a desire to play tennis. He also liked the games, and he was just talking to himself that he wanted to go inside, that he wanted to play the game. And he said, I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. Sahib also told Anis Jung that he was free to enter the neighborhood club of tennis whenever nobody was there inside. The gatekeeper used to let him go inside, and he used to use the swing which was there in the club. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. Sahib also was wearing tennis shoes, but it was quite unusual to see his discolored shirt and shorts with that tennis shoe. Someone gave them to me, he says in the manner of an explanation. Sahib further told Anis Jung that the shoes which he was wearing, those shoes were given to him by someone. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. In fact, the tennis shoes which Sahib was wearing, those shoes were not of him. Those shoes were the discarded shoes of a rich boy. It means some rich boy had disliked wearing those shoes. That's why Sahib was wearing them. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. The pair of shoes which he was wearing, in one of the shoes there was a hole. But for Sahib, it was very much important and valuable thing. Why? Because in his whole life he had never found even that kind of shoes. So the shoes having a kind of hole was also an important and good thing for him. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. But the game of tennis, which Sahib liked very much, was quite impossible thing for him, because such games do not belong to the poor class like the family of Sahib. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says, pointing in the distance. Now you see, a few days passed, Anis Jung again saw there was a change in Sahib. What was the change in Sahib? He was on his way to a milk shop. What was he having? He was holding a steel canister into his hands. And now he told Anis Jung that he was no longer collecting garbage. What was he doing now? He was now working in a tea stall which was down the road. I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. Does he like the job? I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. Sahib told that he was getting 800 rupees per day and his whole day food. Then Anis wanted to know whether he was happy in his new kind of job, and she at once anticipated, she at once evaluated by his expression that he was no longer happy. Because when he was collecting garbage, he had full freedom. He had a carefree expression on his face. And he was, by the way, carrying the plastic bag upon his shoulders. But it was his own mastery over that job. He was no longer a slave to anybody, but now he was working as a servant for a tea stall for 800 rupees per month. The bag was his, the canister belongs to man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. According to a religion, the poor, when they work for others, when they work for the rich, they are no longer in freedom. But when they are working for themselves in some kind of business, whether that business is very much low leveled business or high leveled business, but that business is their own and they have the freedom to survive in a better way. So in this way, the story of Sahabe Alam ends here. Here begins the new story, which is related to a boy, Mukesh. I want to drive a car. I want to drive a car is a dream of Mukesh. Let us come to understand what Mukesh's dream is. Mukesh insists on being his own master. I will be a motor mechanic, he announces. Mukesh is a boy. He dreams to become his own master. He doesn't want to stay as a servant, and he wanted to become a motor mechanic. Do you know anything about cars? I asked. The narrator asked him, did he have any kind of idea about cars? I will learn to drive a car, he answers, looking straight into my eyes. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fill his town Firozabad, famous for its bangles. Mukesh belongs to a city which is known as Firozabad. Firozabad is popular all over the world for bangle making, and Mukesh belonged to bangle making factory. Mukesh belonged to bangle making factory, bangle making family. All the family members used to work in bangle making factories. Mukesh had a different kind of dream which was untraditional. What was his dream? He wanted to become a motor mechanic, which was quite impossible for the laborers of Firozabad bangle making factory. Every other family in Firozabad is engaged in making bangles. It's the center of India's glass blowing industry, where families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for all the women in the land. It seems Firozabad is the epicenter. It is the main center of bangle making in India, and all the families living in Firozabad are busy in making bangles. Some are welding glasses, some are making bangles. They are working around the big furnaces of bangles. Mukesh's family is among them. None of them know that it is illegal for children like him to work in the glass furnaces with high temperature in dingy cells without air and light. That's the law, if enforced, could get him and all those 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces where they slog their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. Mukesh belongs to those 20,000 children like him who are minor in age. They were working in the bangle making factories of Firozabad, but they were below 14 years, which was totally illegal to work there. They didn't know about their future. They were almost blinding their eyes by working hard in the hot furnaces of bangle making factories. Most of the time, what happened with the children working in bangle factory, they used to lose their eyesight. They used to lose the brightness of their eyes. Mukesh's eyes beam as he volunteers to take me home, which he proudly says is being rebuilt. One day, Anis Jung, while talking to Mukesh, was invited by him to his home. She went to his home. This home was under process. It was being rebuilt. We walked down stinking lanes choked with garbage, past homes that remain hovels with crumbling walls. While she was going towards the home of Mukesh, it was very dirty slum area. It was choked with garbage. While she was passing through the homes, she saw that many of the homes had walls which were crumbling bit by bit, which were about to fall. Wobbly doors, doors were not straight. Many doors were broken, half broken, or rotten. No windows, crowded with families of humans and animals coexisting in primeval state. In that colony you can say, or slum you can say, in that slum, human beings and animals lived at the same place, lived in the same house. He stops at the door of one such house, bangs a wobbly iron door with his foot, and pushes it open. At one such poor house, Mukesh stopped. He took on his junk inside his home. We enter a half-built shack. It was a half-built hut. In one part of it, thatched with dead grass, is a fire stove over which sits a large vessel of sizzling spinach leaves. Condition was very poor. This house was very poorly built. It was thatched with dead grass only. It means the roof of the hut was of dry grass, and there was a fireplace over which some pot was kept. Inside the pot, spinach leaves were burning. Spinach stands for palak. On the ground, in large aluminium platters, platters stands for plate. On the ground, in large aluminium plates, were more chopped vegetables. More chopped means cut vegetables were there. A frail young woman is cooking the evening meal for the whole family. There was a weak and thin lady. She was young, but she was very weak and thin, and she was preparing food for all the family members. Through eyes filled with smoke, she smiles. She is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother, not much older in years. She has begun to command respect as the Bahu, the daughter-in-law of the house, already in charge of 3 men, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. This young lady who was cooking there, she had tears in her eyes because of smoke. This young woman was the wife of Mukesh's brother. By the way, she was very much young in her years. She was not very much old. Yet she had begun being called the Bahu of the family, the daughter-in-law of the family. She had to take care of 3 men, Mukesh, Mukesh's brother, and their father. When the older man enters, she gently withdraws behind the broken wall and brings her wheel closer to her face. When the father of Mukesh enters the home, sister-in-law of Mukesh, that young woman who was cooking, sister-in-law of Mukesh covers her face with the veil of her sari. As custom demands, daughters-in-law must veil their faces before male elders. In this case, the elder is an impoverished Bengal maker. According to Hindu tradition, the women, especially the Bahu of the family, daughter-in-law of the family, is supposed to cover her face before her elders, and she had to do it. In this case, this elder person, it means Mukesh's father, was a poor Bengal maker. Despite long years of hard labor, first as a tailor, then a Bengal maker, he has failed to renovate a house, send his 2 sons to schools. All he has managed to do is teach them what he knows, the art of Bengal making. Mukesh's father had worked for many years in his life, but he had failed to build a beautiful house. He has failed to build a beautiful house. He could not do any kind of a special thing in his life. What did he do? He also failed to send his sons to schools. He just succeeded in making them laborers like him. He knew the art of Bengal making, and he taught the same art of Bengal making to his sons. It is his karam, his destiny, says Mukesh's grandmother, who has watched her own husband go blind with the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. Mukesh's grandmother accepted the fact that it is the karam, it is the destiny of her family members that they have been working in Bengal factory. She had accepted this fact. The reason behind it was that she had seen her own husband going blind because of working in hot furnaces of Bengal. She implies, born in the caste of Bengal makers, they have seen nothing but bangles in the house, in the yard, in every other house, every other yard, every street in Firozabad. Since they were born in the family of Bengal makers, they had seen nothing in their life. They had just seen bangles all around them. Spirals of bangles, sunny gold, paddy green, royal blue, pink, purple, every color born out of the 7 colors of the rainbow lie in mounds in unkempt yards, in the dirty yards of their homes, in a very disorderly manner. Various kinds of bangles were kept there. Those bangles were kept there for selling, are piled on four-wheeled handcraft pushed by young men along the narrow lanes of the shanty town. What did they do? They used to pull the bangles by the lorry, and they also used to have people who used to carry on four-wheeled hand carts. Four-wheeled hand carts means they used to push the carts by themselves. And in dark hutments, next to lines of flames of flickering oil lamps, sit boys and girls with their fathers and mothers, welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. Many boys and girls used to sit there, and they were doing the welding of bangles. Their mother, their father, they used to sit with them. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to the light outside. That is why they often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. Many boys and girls, even in the evening time when it used to grow dark, they were busy in welding bangles. And because of working in the darkness rather than in the light, they had lost their eyesight before they reached the age of adulthood. Among those bangle makers' family, one more mention is of a girl whose name was Savita. Savita is a young girl in a drab pink dress. Savita's dress up is that of pink color. It is dull pink color. Sits alongside an elderly woman soldering pieces of glass. Savita is a young girl. She has been described by Anish Jung. She tells us about the condition of a young girl. This young girl was sitting by an elderly old woman. She was also soldering the pieces of glass. She was also welding the pieces of glass. As her hands move mechanically like the tongs of a machine, I wonder if she knows the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. While Savita was welding bangles, she was making bangles. Anish Jung saw her very impressively. She started thinking whether Savita knew the holiness of bangles, the purity of bangles, what is the value of bangles. It symbolizes an Indian woman's suhag, auspiciousness in marriage. Anish Jung further explains that bangle is the symbol of auspiciousness in marriage. It is the symbol of suhag. It is the symbol of a married lady. It will dawn on her suddenly one day when her head is draped with a red veil, her hands dyed red with henna, and red bangles rolled onto her wrists. Anish Jung started thinking, one day this girl Savita will also be married to some person. The day when she is going to be married, her hand will be colored with henna, that you call mehdi, and her hand will also wear bangles. And from that very day, when she becomes married, she will be a married woman. She will also be regarded bahu of some family. She will then become a bride. Then she will become a bride, dulhan, like the old women beside her who became one many years ago. She still has bangles on her wrist, but no light in her eyes. According to Anish Jung, Savita will also become a bride, just like the old woman who was sitting beside her. This old woman had no light in her eyes. एक वक्त शेर भर खाना भी नहीं खाया. She says in a voice drained of joy. This old woman who was sitting quite close to Savita, she commented, एक वक्त शेर भर खाना भी नहीं खाया. Means she has not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. That's what she has reaped. It means condition of the bangle maker's family was so much poor that they were smiting even for one time proper meal. They did not get even one time proper meal. Her husband, an old man with a flowing beard, says, I know nothing except bangles. The husband of the old lady who was also sitting there, he told Anish Jung throughout his life he had not seen at all. He had just seen bangles only. All I have done is make a house for the family to live in. In the entire life, he could successfully do one thing, that was making the house for his family. Hearing him, one wonders if he has achieved what many have failed in their lifetime. He has a roof over his head. The cry of not having money to do anything except carry on the business of making bangles, not even enough to eat, rings in every home. In every home of Firozabad, all the poor bangle makers cry for not having money. For many generations, they have lived in the permanent state of poverty only. The young men echo the lament of their elders. The young boys, young girls of the family always weep, cry. They always faultify their elders for not developing them, for not making them rich. Little has moved with time, it seems, in Firozabad. Anish Jung tells us here that the condition of Firozabad shows that there changed nothing with time. Years of mind-numbing toil have killed all initiative and the ability to dream. For many years, they worked so much hard that their mind completely numbed. Their mind completely got suspended. They could not take any kind of new step. Their ability to learn was completely disheartened. They could not think of making a new way of life. They just thought that bangle making was the only way of their survival. Why not organize yourself into a cooperative? I ask a group of young men who have fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen who trapped their fathers and forefathers. Anish Jung had many suggestions for the poor. One suggestion she gave to a group of young men. She told them to organize themselves into a group, and in this group they could collect money and they could help one another. She wanted to make them come out of the trap of agents, come out of the trap of rich people, because the rich people, the middlemen, the agents, they always created some kind of trouble for them so that they could be economically troubled like their forefathers. Even if we get organized, we are the ones who will be hauled up by the police, beaten and dragged to jail for doing something illegal. They say there is no leader among them, no one could help them see things differently. The response from the group of young men was that they could do nothing new in their life. By the way, they wanted to start something new out of bangle making. The policemen would punish them. People would punish them. Rich people would not allow them to do something new. Their fathers are as tired as they are. They talk endlessly in a spiral that moves from poverty to apathy, to greed and to injustice. Now you see, their fathers are as tired as they are. See here, young men suffered a lot. Their fathers were very much tired. They talk endlessly in a spiral that moves from poverty to apathy, to greed, to injustice. While they were talking to the author, they were talking in a manner in which there was all the mention of poor state of their life. There was all the description of pitiable condition. There was description of greed. There was description of injustice which happened in their life. Listening to them, I see two distinct worlds. One of the family caught in a web of poverty, burdened by the stigma of caste in which they are born. The other a vicious circle of the sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats and the politicians. According to Anish Jung, there are two worlds in this world. One world is of the poor people, like those living in Simapuri and Firozabad. And another world is of rich people, sahukars, middlemen, lawyers, bureaucrats and politicians. In the world of the poor live, and in the world of the rich live. Together they have imposed the baggage on the child that he cannot put down. Now you see, the circle of Sahukars, rich people, politicians, and many other powerful people has always taken the poor for granted. They have always exploited the poor. They have laid all the burden upon their shoulders, and this burden can't be carried away by these poor people. Before he is aware, he accepts it as naturally as his father. To do anything else would mean to dare, and daring is not part of his growing up. Young men of poor family, if they wanted to do something new, they would be dominated. And if they dared to do something new, it would be a great punishment for them. It would be categorized as a big crime from their side. When I sense a flash of it in Mukesh, I am cheered. I want to be a motor mechanic. He repeats, he will go to a garage and learn, but the garage is long way from his home. Anish Jung tells us here, she was very much happy to find a new kind of idea in a Bengal maker family boy, Mukesh. He wanted to become a motor mechanic, but it was impossible for him to become because motor mechanics were not found in that locality. It was a great distance from that place to the place where motor mechanics used to be found. Mukesh told her that he would walk, he would go there. Do you also dream of flying a plane? He is suddenly silent. No, he says, staring at the ground in his small murmur. There is an embarrassment that has not yet turned into regret. When Mukesh told her that he also wanted to drive a car, he wanted to become a motor mechanic, Anish Jung asked him if he also wanted to fly a plane. Mukesh did not dare to speak anything in favor of flying planes because he could not even dream of that out of his capacity. He is content to dream of cars that he sees hurtling down the streets of his town. Few airplanes fly over Firozabad. Mukesh thinking about aeroplanes was totally out of way. He was just thinking about cars only, and he had seen cars that was possible for them. He never thought about planes. Very few aeroplanes were flying over Firozabad there. Thank you very much for this one.